Testing, testing. Hiya, people of the interwebs. Hey up, how are you doing? I thought I'd just do a video today about an MG book and a bit of a garage technical manual, I suppose it is. So. When I got the MG, I had a look around for a Haynes Manual because I find Haynes Manuals quite interesting. Well, interesting is maybe the wrong word. Useful. It kind of, you're able to see how things are supposed to be taken apart before you actually give them a crack. So even if you don't do it exactly how it is there, it kind of gives you an idea of what to expect when you start a job. So it's, yeah, I find it kind of useful. Nowadays with the internet, I'm not sure how useful they are. I mean, it's good to have something in paper form that you can just grab off a shelf while you're in the garage, have a leaf through, find out exactly what it is you're needing to do, and then have a crack at it yourself, rather than having to get your phone out, find like a page, a PDF on the internet, and then have a look through it on there. It is useful just to have that paper thing. But they don't do one for the MGTF. I'm not sure why they didn't do that, but yeah, there's other bits and pieces that you can get instead. So one of them's a garage technical manual, and the other one is this one, which I find quite useful, although I've not read it much. So it's everyday modifications for your MGF and TF. So there's a few bits and pieces in this. I'll put some other screenshots up on there, but I'll just go through roughly what's included in here. So there's sort of body, working interior changes, brake, suspension and steering changes, various wheels that are available and how to fit aftermarket wheels and such like, changes you can make to the powertrain, so that's engine and transmission, the MGF and TF electrical systems, setting up an MG, maintenance, and then there's some technical data in there as well. So I'll just leaf through this and find some interesting bits and pieces on there. So the introduction basically takes you through a few different models of what's available and what's being made. I quite like that one's quite tasty. I don't know whether you'll be able to make it out. I'll try and remember to do a shot of it, but yeah, it's like a bit lowered, nice bucket seats in there, cream interior, an early F. I like that one. What else have we got? Sort of general safety when you're jacking a car up and such like on there. Body and interior changes, so things from like putting chrome grills, chrome mesh in there. I think it's on mine they're like, oh yeah, they're black, and I took the front one off and repainted it when I took the bumper off and such like earlier. So interior changes, so things like your door cappings and stuff. Oh, the heater knobs, I'll not mention them. Different seat combinations, there's that one from the front again, it likes power seats, they're quite nice. Oh, this was an interesting part that I thought was quite good. So the modifications and how they affect the aerodynamics. So there's a bit of research that they've done to sort of show the standard aero and how you get a bit of lift on an MGF and TF, and then what happens when you put a splitter on the front to sort of reduce that lift, and then what happens when you put a vented bonnet on, how that reduces the lift, and then what happens when you put a rear spoiler on and how that reduces the lift as well, or more provides downforce. Yeah, little bits on spoilers and such like. vented bonnets. RPS I think do a vented bonnet. I quite fancy putting one on that, but I don't know. It's not. I think they probably cost half what the car cost me to buy to do an M2 bonnet. But there's one. What one looks like anyway. What else have we got on here? So hard tops, quite a big section on hard tops and such like. Oh, one modification I might do later is, let's have a look what it says. It says it's about putting trim around the inside of the wheel arches at the back on there. So it's apparently the F's had it, but the TFs don't. It's basically like a rubber sealing strip. Obviously, if you're putting something like that on, you need to make sure what's underneath it's quite solid, and hopefully put some grease or something in there to keep water out. Otherwise, you don't want to trap water in there. That's the last thing. But let's have a look. It says here, in order to reduce stone chipping, which allows corrosion to start in the wheel arches of the TF, probably the simplest and most effective modification is to fit the arch protective strips that were standard on MGFs. It's just basically like a bit of a rubber strip that clips on the inside, really. So brakes and suspension setup, it goes through different types of brake pads and uprating the calipers to the larger ones, and vented and grooved discs and drilled discs. Then it goes through, because obviously the larger brake kits you need to have a specific size wheel to fit over the top of them on there. So that's one thing to be careful of if you think about upgrading the calipers and such like. And there's a bit about the MGF hydrogas suspension setup, which apparently is really comfy but a bit floaty. And I think it was partly that and partly cost, I assume, that they went down to springs on the TF. So the Fs have got like hydrogas suspension where it's all linked on there, and the TFs have just got springs, which means you can put load springs on, like me. And what else have we got in here? More F suspension stuff. Bit about subframes and subframe mounts. There's a bit about the soft ride kits on there. So pre 2005 TFs had a bit of a compromised spring setup, so they were a bit clashy, a bit hard on there. So they came up with a soft ride kit, which was basically a more progressive spring and I think a little less severe damper on there. You can still get those. I'm sure. I think last time I saw they were about £600. So it's worth doing if you've got an MGTF and it's fairly well looked after underneath. There's not any sort of looming problems with it. It's worth putting one of them on. Apparently it helps the comfort a lot. Again, as I say, mine's on lowered springs, so it's not the most forgiving of rides, but it just, I don't know, I like the look of it, and it's, to be honest, it's a little bit more compliant over little bumps. Bigger bumps, it's obviously harder than it was standard, but it just feels a little bit better over smaller bumps, and obviously going round roundabouts. Oh, there they go. So these are the Ironback sport springs that I've got fitted on mine. The popular lowered Ironback spring kit for the TF, commissioned by MG Sport and Racing, it has been returned to the market by Expart. So yeah, they're the ones I've got on mine, and the green, and they look kind of cool. Yeah, there's a bit about what we got on here. Steering wheels. See, it says here that the standard MGF had a plastic steering wheel, which I think's a bit crap. And the TF one's got a leather one, which is the same as, I think it's the same as what mine is. I don't think, unless mine's plastic. I don't feel plasticky. Could be. And there's the the MGTF GT concept. That's quite nice looking. What else have we got? Oh, we've got a big section on different wheels available, and sort of spaces you'd need for certain aspects and such like. What else have we got? Oh yeah, and there was the some of them came with a space saver, which was exactly the same as an alloy wheel, but the problem is that MGs have different size tyres on the front and the back. I can't remember which one's which. So 215 on the back, 195 on the front, I think. So obviously the space saver has to have a 50 mile an hour 50 mile an hour speed limit on it, because it's if it's the wider one and you put it on the front, it's not going to fit properly. It's not matched up. So wherever you put it, unless you put it on a specific side on the back, it's not matched up. So you have to put that speed limit on there. What else have we got? So there's a bit about air intakes and different air intakes and how they affect performance. A bit about the different sort of throttle bodies and intakes that they have on there. Injectors, different parts of the engines. Oh, sports cats and standard cats. That's quite an interesting picture that I'll try and remember to upload. So this is your standard cat, so it's quite restrictive, and this is the sports cat, so you can see how much less restriction there is on the sports cat than the standard one. Oh, there's a bit about the ECU controlled vacuum valve. So on the TFs, I think it must have been to get through some sort of noise regulation. As standard, when it's on tick over or low revs, the gases come out of one side of the exhaust, and then when it gets to a certain revs, it opens up a valve for the other side. It's very easy just to disconnect the valve bit and block it off basically, and then you just get exhaust gases out of both sides all the time, which is far better. There's nothing worse than looking at a twin engined exhaust car and just seeing gases coming out of one side. It looks silly. What else have we got? So there's a big section on exhausts, then section on cams and different sort of gas flowing of ports and such like. What about a belt tensioner? Yeah, and then all sorts about heads and cams and porting. What else have we got? Oh, the stainless steel coolant pipes, quite good. We did that on that one. We did those on that one even quite soon after getting it. It's quite easy, to be honest. Be easier if it was on a ramp, because obviously we've got the back end on a ramp, but the front end's still not. So you're still having to come under the car quite a lot, and obviously the further under the car you get, the less space you've got. But I managed to get far enough under with enough space to be able to take the old pipes off and connect the new pipes up and everything. So it's worth doing, getting stainless steel cooling pipes underneath. They're the hardest thing to keep an eye on, and obviously one of the easiest thing to start corroding, so best swapping them out. There's a picture of them on there. What else have we got? Alternative engines. So there'll be a bit about different engines on there. I'd quite like to have a Civic VTEC engine in one of them. That'd be a nice touch. Or just a turbo in it'd be nice. Or the Rover V6s, that'd be good. I don't know if it'd fit. There's a bit about ECUs and different electrical systems. So it's like the difference between the older and the newer ECUs and systems and such like. What else are we looking at? Parking sensors. So do you feel the need to put parking sensors on there? Daytime running lights, different high level brake lights. well, they say high level, it's like literally like an inch or two higher than the standard brake lights, and there's a bit about different rear lights on there. Different binnacles, obviously the fan pack resistors on there, they go all the time. I think mine's only running on 2, 3 and 4 at the moment. Splash guard's really useful to put on because it does protect the pulleys and the cam belt, and obviously the auxiliary belt from sort of any water and crap thrown up from the road. Although I put mine on and then literally 3 weeks later I needed to put an alternator on, so I just ripped it off again. So I should put that back on when I change wheels over next. There's a bit about tracking and such like, greasing parts of the suspension. There you go, and then some performance data. So they're doing various comparisons with engines with different power torque settings and different induction and such like on there. So it's fairly good. Yeah, there's a lot to read through on there. Obviously it's not the kind of thing where you read it one day and go and sort of modify it next, but it's interesting if you're into the mechanicals and how to improve things on there. I'm not sure whether it's in here, but one of the things I did was I put Citroen's are jet washers on the bonnet, because the standard ones are they're just like jets, whereas the Zara ones are like a spread all the time. And they are a lot better on there. So just a tiny thing. I think they're only like £7 as well, and it takes like 10 minutes to swap them over, so that's quite a good one. Let's have a look at this other book as well. I don't know whether I've spent more than 10 minutes looking through this one since I bought it, 'cause it's a bit techy. Oh god. Right, see what there is in here. So I bought this off. It's off at T-Bay. So what we've got? So we've got a K-Series engine overhaul manual. So it's got all technical data about the engines and sizes of whatevers and all sorts of stuff in there. Don't think I've even ever looked at this one. So it's quite interesting if you're into that sort of techie stuff. I'll try and remember to put some photos of this up as well on there. It's quite a few exploded diagrams on there. The next one, the PG1 manual gearbox. What's this got in it? Okay, so this has got a few exploded views again in different settings and differential assembly, and what else we got? Selector shafts and forks, synchro ring, basically just a bit of an explosion of everything, and telling you how we dismantle gearboxes. I assume if you know what you're doing, you can take a gearbox to bits and put it back together and it'll be perfect. But again, it's another little useful section. And then this one is the MGTF Workshop Manual. So I mean, I suppose it's a bit like a Haynes Manual in a way. It's got plenty of stuff in there. I don't know whether I'm holding it up enough from there for you. Let's go through it. So yeah, it mentions a bit about heating and ventilation system on there, so how that's together and how you take it to bits. What we got here? Bodywork stuff, doors, something about getting everything lined up if you take a door off. Looks like the components to the soft tops. Brake pads, front sports. So they're the sports ones are the bigger calipers on there. So it's showing you how to disconnect them and clean them up and put new pads and stuff on. What's this one? Rear brake caliper components. I found on mine that one of the rear calipers kept sticking, so it wouldn't come on properly. And then if you did manage to put it on properly, it'd stick and not go off. And there's like a little mechanism inside that after a while wears out, so it stops working properly basically. So rather than faff about all the time, I just stuck 2 new calipers on. It cost more obviously than just greasing the one that's on there, but it lasts a lot longer. It's fine, perfect now. What else have we got? Rear suspension exploded diagrams, steering wheel. Yeah, your steering column's all fastened and everything. So it is pretty much like a Haynes manual. Maybe not as sort of easy to digest as a Haynes manual is, but the same sort of thing. And yeah, that was like a copy of that from eBay. So the MGTF Workshop Manual. I assume it's what they used to send around to service centres and such, maybe. There's a lot of bits and pieces in it. So yeah, two quite useful books. Useful and interesting. Yeah, there's a few things in both of them that'll be quite useful and valid at some point, I'm sure. Again, it's the technical one is more of a like this is what it looks like exploded. So then when you go to look at the part that you're trying to do, you've kind of got an idea in your head of how you need to approach it, basically. So yeah, I hope that were interesting. So I'll hopefully pop some pictures around here somewhere of the various bits and pieces while I'm talking or waffling at you about it on there. And yeah, hopefully you'll find that useful. Ta-da!